All plans to make sure that you make your loved one happy. And when we're talking about the loved ones, we know that it doesn't have to be, your significant other. It could be your mother, it could be your friend, and all that. And so I know there are lots of plans in the city and beyond to make sure that those people that you consider, special to you, then are appreciated in a different way. We also have prepared something small for you. We're going to go to the Valentine's Corner for a moment to discuss, a love story of a very, very incredible couple. Beyond that, we're going to hit the kitchen a little bit different to make sure that we prepare you a Valentine's meal. And most importantly, we're going to cut that cake, in appreciation of your loyalty to us, just to say asante sana and that we love you right back equally. For couples, at this very time, we'll also be having a conversation as to how best we can take you through a training of making sure that you balance your finances as a couple. Most of the people will tell you that some of the troubles that we get, or a majority of the people who are having trouble in their relationships, is simply because of the question of finances. And so understanding how you can manage this as a couple is equally very, very important. That is what we have in store for you on this special day of Valentine's. But before that, it's important that we also take a look at what is happening in the world of news. We take a look at the papers. We also take a look at the stories that have been prepared by my team. I'll be having a guest who will help me walk through the papers as well as we enlighten ourselves as to what is happening. Equally, the president says it's important that we come together as a people and pray for the country, pray for economic emancipation, as well pray for the rains, so that we could have the rains, and so much more. So as we get into this moment of prayer as a country, just what is this that we reflect on this very special day? Equally, we're having the parliamentarians going back to their sessions as of today. The Senate, having their very first session of opening after a long time recess. It will be a very, very important, moment as well that we'll be following up to keep you up to tab. So allow me to start off by taking a look at what we have prepared as a team, and then shortly Kirui will be joining me for us to take a look at what the papers detail. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. Who is this person that you intend to celebrate? Please write us, and we'll definitely be sampling some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. And the broadcast begins right away. It's a tongue twister. My name is Linda Lela. Now, the government has taken a decisive step to deploy Kenya Defence Forces soldiers to areas in the North Rift region that have been suffering from persistent banditry attacks and rising fatalities. President William Ruto announced that the government has reached a point of no return and that things will not continue as usual starting today, Tuesday, February 14th, as Collins Lusweti reports.
A tough operation is set to begin on Tuesday, February 14th, after a meeting between President William Ruto and leaders from the North Rift region, an operation targeting gunmen behind the incessant attacks in the north.
Nilikuwa Baringo, nilikuwa Turkana, nilikuwa Samburu. Watu wengi wamepoteza mifugo yao, wamepoteza maisha yao. Tukiongea mashule karibu 15 hayajafunguliwa. Tukiongea magari ya polisi imechomwa juzi kule Turkana.
The decision to launch the operation comes in the wake of killings in the area, leaving locals in constant fear.
Ainuk Kaptir, tumechoka na tumechoka. Serikali chukua mamlaka yako, deal na hao wakorofi ambao wametusumbua. We are just tired. How can we be slaughtered like goats and animals? And the government of Kenya is just watching.
Just days ago, 4 police officers were killed by suspected bandits in Kainuk area along the Kitale-Lodwar Road, with 12 others fighting for their lives in hospital.
Iyo area yote ambaye tuko naye na matatizo, tumesema from tomorrow, everybody mwenye ako na bunduki ambayo sio halali, ambayo hajapatiwa na serikali, they must surrender in 3 days.
In a meeting with leaders from Baringo County, the president announced the operation will involve the Kenya Defence Forces soldiers and the police in a bid to restore calm in the region.
Na kuanzia kesho tutakuwa na polisi pale, tutakuwa na wanajeshi pale. So tunataka kuambia watu wenye wanapenda amani Kama uko na bunduki ambayo hujapatiwa leseni na serikali, rudisha.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has this evening released a statement declaring parts of North Rift that have been affected by insecurity disturbed and dangerous. The statement reads, further in the exercise of the powers conferred under Article 2413B of the Constitution of Kenya, read together with Section 81 of the Public Order Act, Cap 56 Laws of Kenya, and Sections 1 and 1061 of the National Police Service Act, Cap 11A, 2011, I have today, February 13th, 2023, declared through a Kenya Gazette notice of event date certain areas specified therein within as disturbed and dangerous. The affected counties are Turkana, West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Laikipia and Samburu. Meanwhile, chairperson of the task force mandated to look at the welfare reforms within the National Police Service, David Maraga, has today visited Turkana County to offer messages of condolences to the family of police officers who lost their lives in an attack at Kainuk area a week ago.
It's unfortunate, and we want to send a message of condolences to the families of those officers who have died in this, what they call forward areas. It's unfortunate.
Collins Lusweti, TV 47.
And opinion leaders and professionals in West Pokot County have praised President William Ruto's decision to launch a comprehensive crackdown to confiscate all illegal firearms in the hands of the public in areas affected by banditry, including West Pokot, Turkana, Elgeyo Marakwet and Samburu counties. Monday, Pokot leaders criticized Turkana South Member of Parliament John Ariko's comments about a recent banditry attack in Kainuk along the Kitale-Lodwar Highway. The story was reported by our West Pokot-based correspondent Andrew Juma.
Barely hours after President Ruto's directive to have a joint operation by the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Police Service deployed in all bandit-prone areas starting this Tuesday, in a move to collect all illegal firearms, leaders from West Pokot County have lauded the move, saying they are ready to collaborate with the government in order to end the incessant banditry attacks.
Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Rais, wewe ni mhasala, sikiza ukweli na usiumize watu yako. Hiyo ndio mwito wetu kama Wapokot. Hiyo ndio imetufanya sasa tuongee ukweli, kwa sababu sasa uongo itaongoza nchi mpaka lini?
Ningependa nimwambie Rais Daktari William Ruto kwamba yale ambayo yalitendeka hapa chini yalienda out of proportion. Kwa kitu kimoja tunataka tuelewe kwamba askari ya Kenya wanatakana kuchunga mwananchi na mali yake. Kama ni shetani iliingilia askari moja akapiga risasi ng'ombe, hapo ndiye maneno ilienda out of hand. Na tunangependa tuseme, sijajua ni kwa nini hawa Waturkana wameingia ndani kulalamika. Wanalalamika Turkana na Pokot hawajapigana. Na tumeambia watu yetu wa maintain refrain, wasikosane na majirani yao. Hata na hiyo ya kunini, hiyo tunasema na shetani ashinde.
This is after several banditry attack cases had been reported in West Pokot, Turkana and Elgeyo Marakwet borders, affecting all human activities in the areas, including learning activities along the wider Kerio Valley.
Ni nani president gani ambaye tutaenda lilia mpaka tupatiwe KVR bwana? Sasa tumeenda sasa kusema hivi, sisi wa Pokot tunaambia Mungu saidia sisi. Saidia kabisa.
Na tumesema kwa sababu wale watu wamekuwa wajeuri, wamekuwa na kiburi mingi. From tomorrow we are moving into that area and we will not leave that area until every illegal gun has been returned, until all children have gone to school, until we have stopped this menace. Na kuanzia kesho tutakuwa na polisi pale, tutakuwa na wanajeshi pale. So tunataka kuambia watu wenye wanapenda amani Kama uko na bunduki ambayo hujapatiwa leseni na serikali, rudisha.
At the same time, the leaders called on Turkana South Member of Parliament John Ariko to withdraw his statements after the Kainuk banditry attack, which claimed the lives of 3 police officers, leaving 7 with injuries on Sunday.
Kitu cha kwanza, ningependa kulaani kabisa matamshi ya viongozi ya majirani yetu vile wameaddress issue pertaining peace. Mjumbe ya Turkana South na seneta yake, ningependa tuulize dunia hii, kama seneta anatembea na silaha na anaita wale wengine bandits, ningependa tuseme bandit number 1 ni mwenye anamiliki hiyo silaha. Ya pili, hawezi akatishia mwananchi mtukufu ya Republic ya Kenya, hata kama anaitwa Mbokot, kwamba hatakani kuwa anaishi Turkana ama ako shule Turkana ama anafanya shughuli yake Turkana.
The move by President Ruto is likely to elicit mixed reactions among locals, some believing that the KDF officers may bring more harm than good to the affected areas.
Now, Bondo Member of Parliament, Dr. Gideon Ochanda, was Monday relieved of his position as the Secretary of the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, Bondo Sub-County, or Bondo Sub-Branch, during a meeting chaired by Siaya Senator Dr. Oburu Oginga. And as our very own Chichi Josephine now reports, members of the branch executive committee who met at the ODM offices in Bondo further resolved that Ochanda be expelled from the party and his sponsorship to Parliament be withdrawn. This as President William Ruto maintains that he will not ask for permission to associate with anyone.
Few days after ODM leaders asked the party to suspend the Member of Parliament alleged to be going against the party rules, Bondo Member of Parliament Gideon Ochanda is the first member to be suspended from his position as Secretary of the ODM party in the area.
Thank you, Caroline.
Ochanda's acts fell at a meeting presided over by Siaya Senator Oburu Oginga, where the ODM chairman for Bondo Region, George Ochieng Mawere, announced that the Member of Parliament's position will be replaced by Francis Otiato.
These members here today unanimously agreed that they have expelled Dr. Gideon Ochanda from being the Secretary of the branch, and his position is taken by Dr. Francis Otiato.
Siaya Senator Dr. Oburu Oginga said ODM cannot tolerate indiscipline within its rank, where he filed and accused Dr. Ochanda of betraying the party.
And the conduct of our Member of Parliament has been unbecoming in the last few weeks. First, he made a statement which was clearly attacking the party and party policies, and stating that he thinks the line the party is taking is illegal.
Meanwhile, ODM leader Raila Odinga's visit to Kisii has been surrounded by controversy after leaders from the county said that they will join the president and are ready to welcome him to Kisii. The hard stance on who should work with who was again amplified by President William Ruto while on his tour of Nakuru County.
Na kama inahitajika ruhusa ya kufanya kazi mwananchi amekupatia, si unarudi kwa mwananchi kumuuliza ruhusa kama hiyo kazi alikupatia ufanye ama usifanye. So tuwache hiyo mambo ya upuzi.
The president said his government is ready to work with all elected leaders and will not ask for permission to associate with anyone.
We do not need the permission of anybody to work together as leaders in the Republic of Kenya. If there is any permission, it is from the voters. When you are elected, you are given the permission by the electorate to work for them, to work with other leaders so that we can change their lives, change our country, and make Kenya a better nation.
This coming a day after the president reiterated his readiness to work with all leaders elected through other parties after he received Jubilee Party Member of Parliament.
Kwa sababu mimi ndio kiongozi wa Kenya. Nitafanya kazi na viongozi wote waliopata nafasi ya kuchaguliwa na katika taifa letu la Kenya, bila ya kujali wanatoka jamii gani, kabila gani, chama gani. Tutafanya kazi ya kupeleka taifa letu mbele pamoja.
Ruto, who spoke during a national prayer service in Nakuru, said Jubilee, a party which unceremoniously exited him, will now work with the United Democratic Alliance.
And then
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
we'll be praying for the...
Well, the 14th Parliament will resume its session that is today, for the second session after a long holiday break, and legislators are eager to discuss several issues that have accumulated, including the cost of living, the first supplementary budget of the Kenya Kwanza government, and a memorandum regarding the creation of the office of the opposition leader. Mwege William will be keeping a close eye on what is expected ahead of the August House sittings.
The National Assembly and Senate will resume their second session after a lengthy break on Tuesday, with a number of pressing issues at the forefront of the legislators' agenda. One of the top priorities for the legislature during their first session will be the consideration of the first supplementary budget under President William Ruto's administration. As Kenyans anticipate, the 14th Parliament is expected to promptly address the rising cost of living through crucial law proposals and amendments.
I will be presenting shortly our revised budget that will actualize the context of national budgetary decision-making, balancing limited resources against the demanding needs for equitable allocation and avoidable obligations, makes hard and unpopular decisions inevitable.
Lakini tunaambia Bwana Ruto, there can be no taxation without representation. Tumeelewana vizuri? Sasa wameingia kwa bunge, wanaanza sasa kunadi wa bunge.
National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah previously stated that they will be working against the clock to conclude the debate on the supplementary budget as soon as possible to maintain seamless government operations. The majority party is eager to advance President William Ruto's legislative agenda.
It is undisputed that governments all over the world exist to serve their people. And parliaments, in effect, act as a principal lawmaking institution that is charged with the legislative function, hence setting the boundaries within which any government, including you as Your Excellency, will operate.
Additionally, a high-stake exchange is anticipated between the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance and opposition members, mainly from Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja. Both houses are expected to have heated sessions, with each side pushing for their respective agendas, including President Ruto's and Odinga's, to be passed. For instance, the President's memorandum on the creation of the office of the leader of the opposition is likely to be a topic of lively debate. President Ruto wrote a letter to National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula and Senate Speaker Amason Kingi, asking them to consider the introduction of a constitutional amendment bill to set up the office of the official opposition leader.
Kitu ambacho kinazidi na kuendelea kukandamiza vyama vya kisiasa hapa nchini, ndiposa hata unaona hiyo watu kwenda ikulu na hali kadhalika ni kwa ajili ya upinzani kukosa rasilimali za kuweza kuendelesha programu walizonazo. Na iwapo tutafika mahali ambapo katika kitita cha kitaifa kuna kuwa na ule mgao ambao unaelekezwa katika ofisi hiyo ili kuweza kuimarisha upinzani, itakuwa sawa.
As Parliament resumes its operations, apart from the legislative and oversight duties, Kenyans will closely monitor the efforts of their representatives in reducing the cost of living as promised by the Kenya Kwanza government during their campaign rallies leading up to the 2022 general election. Mwege William, TV47.
Now, Nairobi County doctors staged a picket Monday outside the governor's office and petitioned the Nairobi County government to reinstate their National Hospital Insurance Fund NHIF coverage. The doctors vowed to stay home until the issue is resolved. Despite the demonstration, operations in most county hospitals continued normally, though a few patients were turned away.
A According to the medical professionals, the issue with health coverage began after the new government took control and dissolved the Nairobi Metropolitan Services (NMS), transferring health services back to the county government of Nairobi.
Yes. As we speak, we had a meeting with our governor, Sakaja. He's a very honorable man. He says he can't do anything. His hands are tied because he has no deed of novation. Why is that deed?
Yes.
Where is that deed? We go for it. Why is that deed? We are being deducted money. NHIF statutory money every month, 1,700. It's not being remitted to NHIF. Where is that money going?
The outraged doctors stated that the situation is so dire that many of them can no longer afford the services they provide.
Imagine we are giving a service which ourselves cannot get it. We have doctors who are in hospital as we speak. They are being detained in hospitals because of bills we cannot pay.
Yes.
Doctor is just a title. There is no money in that doctor. So you can imagine being told to pay 700,000, 1 million in one day. Where will you get that power? Shame! Shame! Shame!
They now want the national government to intervene in the matter or else their strike continues.
Mr. President, we are talking to you. We are hustlers wa Nairobi. Madaktari pia ni mahasla. Hatuna bima ya afya. Tunataka ututetee. Now here, fahali wawili wanapigana, we are suffering. We as doctors, we are suffering. We go to work, we see our patients diligently, we work, we give care which is needed, but we come to our side, we don't have care. How do you expect us to suffer?
They claim that NMS left a 1 billion shillings debt at NHIF accrued over a period of 2 years. A spot check done by TV47 in a few of the county hospitals showed that operations continued smoothly in most of them, with very few patients being turned away.
Alikuwa nimekuja kutibiwa, mimi ni mgonjwa, sisikii mzuri. Yeah, so nimeingia, si ati experience ni mbaya, but kuna hizi ma confusion za watu. Sasa kuna mali nimeenda jina, sasa unaona kama huko mali unafaa uende ulipe consultation fee. Jina yangu ikaandikwa Mary Njoki. Sasa mimi naitwa Raivon.
Nimekuja hapa Mama Lucy, kliniki ya mtoto. Nimepata warembo pale wakifanya kazi yao na wakanihudumia. Sijaona ubaya yoyote.
Nilikuwa nimepewa appointment, huyu mtoto ako na extra digit. Sijapata huduma juu wamesema daktari wamegoma kwa kufanyia hiyo surgery. Date 20.
Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Now, the Ministry of Education has issued a warning to school administrators who are allegedly or illegally transferring grade 7 learners to class 8 for parents who want to avoid taking their children through the competency-based curriculum. Through a circular sent to newsrooms, Education PS stated that action will be taken against any school found to engage in such malpractice.
It all started in Garissa County when the Garissa Township Deputy County Commissioner Solomon Chisut issued a warning to teachers and parents against occasioning skipping of junior secondary schools by learners under the competency-based curriculum to join the Standard 8 classes under the 844 system.
Wale walifanya darasa la 6 wanaenda junior secondary school. Kuna wazazi ambao sasa wanarukisha watoto wanaenda kuregister katika darasa la 8. Na ningependa kuwaonya walimu, mtapoteza kazi zenyu, mtatapoteza kazi na hiyo hatuchezi. Hakuna vile unaweza rukisha mtoto kutoka class 6 kuregister kama class 8. And we have notorious schools. We have their list. We have forwarded to the Department of Criminal Investigation. Action will be taken.
And now Education PS Belio Kipsang has cautioned learning institutions that are facilitating the illegal transfers of grade 7 learners to class 8. This illegality involves falsification of school records, falsification of birth records and biodata of grade 7 learners, attempts to change or obtain new birth certificates by parents to aid in the malpractice, generation of new UPI for continuing learners, presenting grade 7 learners as class 8, and facilitating transfers of grade 7 learners into other schools and presenting them as class 8 transfers. The government says that action will be taken against any school found engaging in such malpractice.
Kama unadanganyika kwamba utafaulu na hiyo, wewe na mtoto wako na mwalimu wewe ambaye mnashirikiana pamoja, nyinyi ni candidates wa kupelekwa jela. Watoto hawa si watoto wako peke yake, ni watoto wa serikali. Watoto wapitie junior secondary school, waende polepole, wafanye class 8, waende high school, unawaharakisha uwapeleke wapi?
There have been reports of attempts by some primary schools to register grade 7 learners for 2023 KCPE exams so that they avoid going through the competency-based curriculum. And so field officers have been asked to validate all registration data for KCPE and point out any abnormal increase in KCPE candidature against 2022 Class 7 enrollment. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Now, the Cabinet Secretary for Roads, Transport and Public Works, Kipchumba Murkomen, has assured that there will be no more political interference in the running of the Kenya Ports Authority. The CS also presided over the inauguration of the authority's board members, who have been given a one-week deadline to commence the recruitment process of a substantive MD by April the 1st.
April 1st will be April Fool. Yeah.
With the authority in the process of picking a new managing director in the recruitment process that ended on January 13th, the current chair of the Kenya Ports Authority and former Kinango member of Parliament Benjamin Tayari chaired a meeting that saw Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen meet the authority's board members to discuss operation of the Mombasa Port.
Nufaisha watu wa Kenya na taifa letu nzima. Katika jina la Yesu nimeomba na kuamini.
Speaking in Mombasa after officiating the first KPA board meeting, Murkomen claimed that the authority has over the years been under political influence in the past regime, which he said has affected the performance of the port, thus calling for the new committee to undertake a review of the KPA Act of 1979 with a view of strengthening the management of the port.
The completion of review of KPA Act must be done. And that's something, Mr. Chairman, I'll be asking you to prioritize. My office will be ready to make sure that we have the act and then we submit it to Parliament. We don't want to introduce a new tax, okay? We have been doing everything as a country to reduce the cost of doing business. So as a result, we've told the county of Mombasa, if there is a service that they are providing to the port, we are willing by law to recognize that service and the Kenya Ports Authority be billed for that service.
Murkomen assured the issue of politics and impunity will no longer interfere with the port's affairs under his tenure as the cabinet secretary, further urging the board to be creative, saying that they were coming in at the authority at a crucial time when the port is facing a myriad of challenges. Top of the list, he said, is competition from the neighbors.
In a positive way, it calls for us also to make sure that we put in necessary investment in this port to keep being, a mile away from competition, if we must make sure that this port remains a port of choice.
Also present was the new Transport PS Mohammed Dakar, who assured the new board of the ministry's full support as they delivered on the mandate in the next 3 years. The KPA board chair Benjamin Tayari assured the cabinet secretary that they were ready for the task ahead, promising that the board will work as a team.
We'll do our best and to ensure that all what you've set for us and His Excellency, to make sure that this port becomes one of the best, that will make sure we achieve that. And I also want to assure you that we will work as a team. As what as you've requested, I believe and I'm very sure that this team will work together.
Somali is expected to open the new deep water port in the city of Garar this month. At the same time, the port of Djibouti in Djibouti has also been expanding operations over the years, with Tanzania also expected to open a new port in Zanzibar soon, which will bring great competition as the Mombasa port has for a long time been an automatic port of choice in the region. Norbert Oduor, TV 47.
Thanks, Norbert, for that. Now, the Media Council of Kenya has called on media practitioners to play an active role in informing and educating the public on peace and development-based issues in their counties. Speaking in Isiolo County during the marking of World Radio Day, which was attended by journalists from the region, Karanja Jackson, the coordinator of Media Council of Kenya Eastern Region, called upon journalists to help in spreading information that promotes peace in the country.
What we're doing is that we've rebranded the cards themselves. They will come with a verification card and a few other features that make it a bit difficult from the ones that people have been creating out there. The second thing we're doing is engaging with different institutions. This is both at the local government and even at the national government, where only accredited journalists will be engaged. It's a conversation that, and we signed an MOU a few weeks ago with the Council of Governors, where even the communication teams within the county governments will only be working with journalists that are only accredited by the council. That will be one of the first steps that we will do. The second will be engaging with other like-minded institutions, things like AMWIC, Kenya Correspondents Association, KUJ, Kenya Editors Guild, and other like-minded institutions to ensure that all of us are singing one tune of ensuring that only accredited journalists are even getting trainings and capacity buildings. That way, we will continue pushing these people out of our zone. The next will be down to us who are professional, those that are accredited, to ensure that we flag and point out to those that are doing it in the wrong way. In an engagement that, like the one we are having, we should be able to call out and say this journalist is one of the pretender journalists that we have in our county.
And for the past 15 years, the world has been commemorating the International Day of Condom every 13th of February, a day set aside by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation to remind people of the need to wear condoms. Here in Kenya, the National Syndemic Disease Control Council, NSDCC, organized a fanfare event in Mount Kenya University for the young people, and here is the highlight.
Sexual reproductive activists, health stakeholders in the private and public sector, as well as students, joined in this procession, sensitizing the public on the need to have safe sex. The event, organized by the National Syndemic Diseases Control Council and NSDCC, aimed at making the conversation and using condoms as fun as possible. Here, the students got to learn the different types of condoms and how they are used.
Being shortage in the market, we decided to bring our own condoms in the market which are affordable. So this is something that we are launching today, and people have shown key interest today to us. Yes.
Being a virgin is still cool, it is still okay. As government we say abstain. If you cannot be faithful to your partner, if you cannot use a condom and they're available. Either from government or please buy a condom. If you can spend 1,500 shillings on pints, on booze.
The drought situation in Mandera continues to affect humans and livestock severely following 4 successive failed rainy seasons. An estimated 200,000 people are experiencing severe food insecurity, while around 100,000 children are likely to suffer from acute malnutrition by the end of 2022. Our correspondent Hashim Jimal reports.
So dry is a place that some children born 2 to 3 years ago have never seen torrents of rain. In Mandera North, a group of farmers who are predominantly pastoralists have embraced mixed farming through installation of irrigation projects in the region. The farm is an admirable green wonder along River Dawa flowing from the Ethiopian highlands across the common border with Ethiopia. The farms are dotted with pawpaw, bananas, orange-fledged sweet potatoes, grafted oranges, lemons, mangoes, and watermelons at various stages of growth. Rokia Mahmood, one of the farmers in Mandera North, is seen harvesting the orange-fledged sweet potatoes in her farm. She has decided to grow the crop as it will help children who are malnourished in the region.
Sweet potato is kwa umuhimu wake iko na faida mingi kwa watoto. Ile malnutrition ambayo iko inasaidia. Kwa kutokana na hii kiangazi iko na muhimu mingi. Inasaidia sana. Tunawaambia watu wetu wanunulie watoto inaweza kuwa kama breakfast kwa mama ambaye wananyonyesha, watu ambaye wako na mzito na watoto, hasa watoto.
The farmers have expressed a The farms, including the scarcity of water, as the Dawa River, their only source of water, dries up, human-wildlife conflict, and the shortage of pump-set engines. Mohamed Mahamoud, an agricultural officer in Mandera North, stated that in partnership with the World Food Program and Mandera County government, they have initiated training for Mandera farmers on drought-resistant crops.
Hao wakulima ni wakulima wa bidii, lakini wamewezwa na ukame mara ya kwanza, kwa maana ile kitu yoyote ambayo wamepanda ama mimea yao yote ni ya watu tatu. Mara ni ya binadamu, mara ni ya mifugo, mara ni wanyama wa pori.
So in terms of diversification, we are encouraging farmers also to go towards crop production. And one of the crop which we are focusing on is this orange-fleshed sweet potato. We are focusing on it and also other crops because one of the challenges we have here in the county is the issue of malnutrition among children.
The Department of Agriculture Mandera County, led by its director, Bernardo Gutu, will partner with the World Food Program to support Mandera farmers in terms of irrigation to increase food production. Mandera has been among counties hardest hit by the brutal effects of drought due to the climate change. Hashim Jimal reporting for TV47, Mandera County.
All right, away from that, allow us to take a quick short break and then we come back to the newspaper review.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Red.
Catches.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Transforming. Endless benefits. Slaty, purely Kenyan. Buy now on Jumia or Amazon.
TV
right, welcome back to the broadcast. Let's briefly take a look at what the papers detail this morning. Like I said, it's a little bit different and special, so we won't delve much into this serious talk of politics or current affairs, but it's only fair that we are enlightened on what is happening and also to get the view of Kirui, or perhaps just decipher on some of these key stories that have been captured on the papers. Victor Kirui, Secretary General, National Youth League, the Ford Kenya Party. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you. It looks like the youth are sort of failing us, or are we on course? That is in relation to just what is happening in the country politically, before we look at some of the stories here.
Many thanks for such an opportunity. Well, good morning all, and happy Valentine's in advance. So, fine, you know, if you look at what's happening in the country largely, I can say most of the youths are just up to task to ensure that they, you know, carve out their place in the national arena, and they're just trying to shape the opinion and focus on what is gonna constructively help this country move forward. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we are following up keenly to see whether the youth that we have set or we have presented to represent us at the level of Parliament and the different dockets of leadership are doing us good. Let's take a look at what the papers detail this morning. Victor Kirui, briefly, I know there's so much that is playing out, including the prayer day and Valentine's, and we have a Valentine's special edition. So before it gets to that moment, allow us to look at these key stories. And first thing first, on matters education, we have a problem for sure. And especially for the students who are transiting to the junior secondary. I hear there are some reports out here that there are schools where you find that, you know, the administrators are, you know, sending the students to the next level, that is class 8, in avoidance of, you know, getting themselves into this, you know, confusion that lies after we have had our students coming from grade 6 and proceeding to junior secondary school. And equally, on the front page of the Daily Nation, expounded on page 8, they speak of a race against time to deliver textbooks to junior secondary learners, and that schools in 20 counties have already been issued with the books, says KICD, that is KIST, with each student getting 12 for each of the core subjects. It's been about books, and beyond the books, the availability of tutors. What do you make of the education sector as a young person in this country? What do you suppose that we need to do to make sure that we get it right, or to avoid a scenario where we are going to plunge our students into a state of confusion or more confusion?
Yes, looking at the education sector largely, I can say, you know, this an area and a sector in government where we are not supposed to have any, you know, iota of confusion at all coming in, or we are supposed to have clarity on how things are running down. But, you know, looking at the scope and the development of CPC, which came in, you know, it was received with mixed reaction, controversies, and it attracted, you know, varied opinions from all across the country, all and sundry. They gave different, you know, opinions towards the same. So anyway, it's understandable when people don't find it, you know, don't find it very, very friendly, because it's coming in the first time we are having this thing, and we just want to ask Kenyans to just embrace and put up with whatever comes with this. Despite all these challenges that we go through, reported daily in our schools for lack of resources, and many other, you know, bottlenecks that have bedeviled this sector. Otherwise, we just expect also the government to, you know, come in decisively and direct a country that CPC is there to stay, and we expect people from all across to just embrace and leave alone these side shows of having people to, you know, come in and try to bring in these fishy things of grade 7 learners getting the status of a grade 8, I mean a class 8, before the two processes of education are applied. Yeah.
And on the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, as well as the People Daily and the papers across, there's this story about the deployment of the KDF or the army to take on the banditry menace that sits in the rift, finds itself on the front page of the Standard newspaper, expanded on page 8, equally on the front page as the biggest story of the Daily Nation, expounded on page 2 and 3. The Daily Nation speaks of national emergency that Kindiki declares part of 6 counties as disturbed and dangerous areas and killing fields for that matter. President William Ruto now orders KDF to join security operation. And wild north, in the last 6 months, we have had over 100 civilians and 16 police officers being murdered in banditry-prone areas, with schools, churches and police vehicles burnt by bandits then who have become even more brazen, escalating their terror activities on locals and law enforcement agencies. This has expounded on page 2 and 3. And we all understand what the Constitution dictates for the deployment of KDF in such scenarios. And I think the very first session with the media this year, we asked the President whether the situation was dire to a point where there was need to deploy the KDF, and that we have gotten to this level. What does it speak of the security policies that we have on board, the mechanisms that have been placed on board to deal with the question of banditry? And we ask ourselves why we've not been successful with them up to this point.
Firstly, on that, and looking at even the policies themselves, I think they just suffice to address the chronic challenge that we've had over time. It's just that this banditry, insurgencies, and belligerent activities comes up when largely the country is concentrating on different political regime, and that's how they just express themselves sometimes. So I also interpreted it as such, but I also saw what the President did in talking to the cassette notice which he issued, and this one was in line with the provisions of Article 241, Clause 3, that's Part B, and threat with the Kenya Defence Forces Act, that's Section 31, 33 and 34, which actually current this government to deploy joint security operation on these war-torn counties. And this, as you said, these counties have actually experienced these banditry attacks lately. I've just risen in number. I saw Trans Nzoia is joining in the league. We also have Samburu. Okay, there are some areas where there have always been, they have been experiencing these persistent challenges, like Kerio Fale, where we've, over time, we've had these things. But I want to understand that politics also comes into play, because these insurgency groups are also trying to express most of their interests and also reaction towards the regime in place. Yep.
All right, and do you suppose then this perhaps would be the ultimate solution? We're going to that levels of, we'll consider extreme. So will this come in handy to address this menace? Do you suppose it would work? And just how different with the new regime, now that this is, and especially the banditry attacks, these are cases that have been there for the longest time in the country. Perhaps, change of tact would be very, very important. So this would come in to address the same?
I believe so. What the government is trying to do now, I believe, is just offering an amicable solution to the challenge. Of course, we can never entirely do solve this issue, especially in a developing nation like ours. But we can always put in, stringent measures and strategies to counter these rebellious groups. And what I've seen with the joint operation, it's going to some extent, lower the number of belligerent activities in those war-torn counties.
I don't know whether you've seen this video from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where we have the citizens there crying foul on the existence of Kenyan, armies, of course, down there to try and quell the animosity, especially those ones triggered by the M23. And they say, these countries, East Africa and generally Kenya, they have their own troubles back at home. Why don't we have their soldiers going back home to address their own menace, as opposed to them being here and making the security situation even tough? Just what do these officers do that is good enough towards making sure that there's that peaceful coexistence? Are they the people who fuel more animosity, or it's a whole different affair? And do you suppose there's some truth in what these citizens of DR say?
Of course, I don't support that there's some truth, because look, issues of intervention on other states or on other countries in security questions has always been there since. Previously, Somalia was experiencing the challenge, and we had AMISOM being deployed there, and we saw a credible job, though to some extent, it was also it also encountered a number of challenges. But when you look at the situation in Congo, the situation in Congo has always been dire. These are people who've never known peace for almost the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And when countries, and especially the international community, with Kenya being now the superpower, the hegemony of East African community, trying to lend a hand and see whether they can, intervene in matters of national security, these people should instead be lauding our efforts and trying to build on our motive, so that we can all, try our best to eradicate this menace. Otherwise, the people from Congo have their situation that has been very dire, and all countries are obliged, and especially this one working under the framework of East African community, to just, intervene in such situations. And so when they say that when they want to castigate their country for deploying some security personnel, that's just I think that's just politics, maybe within their own mainstream as well. Yeah, otherwise Kenya is doing its good. But now when we are here at home, we're also trying to look at how to run our security sector in a quite organized and constructive manner. It's not easy to issue a joint operation like what has just been declared by the president. It's not as easy thing as many might think it should have been done. And it's not being done as a knee-jerk reaction as well. I believe there was an organized, well-verified, and well-processed plan to issue onto such declaration.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, it's a special day for the country, beyond the Valentine's euphoria. Then we have prayers declared by the president, or at least, called upon by the president for the nation to come together, in a prayer or in a prayer moment. And so the country, according to what the Standard newspaper speaks of or to, they argue that, we ask ourselves whether these prayers versus the barazas that we have witnessed are expected to bring to the fore anything positive in terms of what these individuals who are propagating or are pushing for the same are, saying they should. For instance, we're talking about the economic turmoil and how this could be addressed. We're talking about the question of the high cost of living, which of course is in line with the economic turmoil, and how we can have this addressed, and most importantly, that political sanity. We pray that the rains would be here, that the taps would not be as dry as they would appear. The country has slid back into the campaign period, you think, or you are of the idea that the president, who is your president, who is the country's president, and I'm saying your president because you are under a party that sits in Kenya Kwanza, right? And so you suppose that these prayers indeed are genuine and for the good of the country, and that we're going to achieve something out of it?
There's never been any challenge with prayers across the country. Whatever number of events you organize for prayers, there's never been any problem with that. The problem comes with the motive, and also what others on the other side of the aisle want to tell us. When we see these interdenominational prayers going around the counties and in the number they have been today, I think we've had the impacts of this, because there have also been platforms where the government gets an opportunity to inform the public periodically and occasionally on issues that actually touches on their lives. Despite being in diluting to prayers, you also need to also give room for politics amidst these functions, because the community will feel more taken care of when amidst their prayer groups you have the head of state speaking to your issues, touching on your livelihoods directly. So I believe the president has there's nothing wrong with holding prayers as much as he will, and as much as he's energetic enough to go around the country to do so. But when you bring the other condescending view...
just a second, can you allow us to take a quick short break and then come back to that view?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Kwa muonekano wao, hauwezi ukajua walichopitia. Kwa sura zao, wanaweza kukaa wameng'aa, lakini nyuma ya hao kuna historia na stori. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Victor Kirui is here with us, one of the key figures of Ford Kenya, right? That is leadership, youth leadership for that matter, as we unpack some of the stories that have been captured on the papers this morning. And yes, you were talking about the issues and of course the prayer session that is slated for the day as the President calls upon the people to join in this noble course towards making sure that, we have answers to some of the problems that bedevil us as a nation.
Yeah, and Duhat, these are also very, very cordial and humble grounds for calling the nation to come together for purposes of unity and calling also for harmony as a counter strategy towards what the other side is trying to bring about. It's so contrasting that the other side is calling for very, very harsh political environment, even for investors to come into the country. There are fears everywhere that Kenya might soon be plunged into some, uncomfortable situations, even calling for foreign direct investments to maybe be scared of our country. So I think it's time to also look at the national unity as a key factor here. It's also time to look at how we can forge harmony and also try to bring together people so that they cannot be overcarried by the contesting political views currently. Because we're done with elections. It's now 6 months after election, and we look like we are just set for an election coming in the next few months, which is indeed a very, very ugly image of our country, even internationally. You know, Kenya is always known to be that country that has done remarkable things abroad. Yeah, we are feared by even many countries. Plethora of examples can be given of what we've done good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and we have President Uhuru Kenyatta, or former President Uhuru Kenyatta, speaking to the issues of the Jubilee Party, or perhaps appearing to be disturbed by this. And they said that there's a badge that has been called on members of that are causing up with the government. And of course, Jubilee insists it's a commitment to the opposition, and any contrary statement must be sanctioned. That's a story captured on page 14. You know what we were treated to sometimes on Friday when they said, well, we root out Kioni, is no longer the SG. Kioni, on the other hand, says, no, this is not a position of the party. And then over the weekend, we see former president as well alluding to the fact that his party leader remains to be Raila Odinga, in as much as maybe, you know, not very active in the question of what is playing out in the Jubilee Party. He's also one of the key figures therein. What do you make of this?
What I make of this is that Jubilee Party, which led our country through a decade, it's so sorry that we are now facing these kind of turmoils at this time, and especially political intrigues that are just destabilizing instead of helping to stabilize. Jubilee, I think the best thing they could do, and led by the party leader, the former president, the best thing they could do for the sake of Kenya is to just conduct a business in quite much mature manner, so that even these other political parties within the domain get to emulate them, because this a political party that has led for a decade. This is a political party that has always also had a very, very tremendous achievements over the last administration. We cannot rule out that. We'll always talk about Jubilee and what they gave us. The scorecard was just remarkable, though that may be contested. But what I saw with the political questions that were rising from within, where Jeremiah Kioni was now being, hosted out of office as the Secretary General. I think these are just politics of, everyone trying to carve out their own benefits, their own political benefits, and politics of conspiracy, politics of a lot of deceit within. Because when there's a court that went to see the president, I don't know how many, but there was some members of parliament who went to see the president, led by Savina Chege and others. And afterwards, we started seeing these things, which, of course, yes, we agree that these parties, anyway, will always have these things. But, there's frameworks under which political parties give out arrangements for its own leadership. They have the NEC Council, the NEC at the top, and their resolution are always binding on who should be the Secretary General. So it's upon the president, the former president, to come out clearly and give the direction of the party, because this is a party, again, that looks like it does no, apex direction. Yeah, so we need to see that. And also let me use this platform to say this. The registered political parties upscaled the number of political parties receiving political parties fund as per the political parties funding in Kenya, from almost 5 to 45. That was tremendous. These parties out there today enjoy a privilege of running their own activities independently because of the financial muscle that the registered political parties has given them. When we have political parties also crossing over to government, or to the party affiliated to government, or working with government in whatever way, it's also it also does something that negates democracy. We need these political parties to be autonomous as such, so that they can pursue their work of checking and even looking at the excesses of government and competitively coming up with policies which are supposed to help government to work, but not to just come to government, you see. So there is this thing in Kenya where political parties just cross over for some benefits. They want to be more safe when they're in government. But what I also advocate for, as a youth leader who understand the place of political parties, these parties should not in any way come towards government. They should not in any way. They should instead robustly figure out their places and pursue their democratic activities from their centers and ensure that...
And it's democracy for them to as well move to this other side. And that's why the president says, he will not be apologetic for engaging and for, engaging these leaders. So in as much as it would be, your opinion that they stick to this other side, they would tell you it's democracy for them to as well go to this other place, in as much as we know that there are levels as to which they are allowed to do that based on what the Constitution speaks to, especially those ones that are elected and are given the mandate by the Jubilee Party or any other party. I know there's this story that is on page 7 that speaks to, the divisions that have continued to widen within the Jubilee Party as former members of parliament throw weight behind president. These ones are former members of parliament. Perhaps they would be allowed for that, and really nothing much would lock them out. But what happens to those ones that have been elected under the Jubilee Party, have been nominated with the Jubilee Party?
First, you say it is their democracy, and I was to say that, but not to an extent that it is detriment to the way government operates and to the way it's going to build up on what we call a majoritarian government. You see, we also want a government that is squarely checked. We cannot plunge ourselves into an excessive regime, all right? So we need these political parties to be as independent as such. Now, looking at what you've just mentioned, these members of parliament who have been, to some extent, disguised as dissidents, I think, based on their own constitutions, their independent party constitutions, which myself am not privy to, the individual party constitutions, but I can say from where I sit, there are some levels at which disciplinary committees of these individual parties look at the case, and when the case is so compelling and warrants ejection from the position you hold, and also sometimes there are certain cases which calls for even absolute removal or recalling from office. And that is the ultimate point. But these ones are just politics within. They are competing interests which are not such detriment to call for a recall of a member of parliament. Neither can it call for people losing their seats. Because then if these members of parliament are so defiant to the law in the text of either the Registrar of Political Parties Act or the Elections Act, the IPC Act, as read with the individual party constitutions and also the Constitution of Kenya, if their violations are just so much detriment, to an extent they can call for people being removed from those, or the party ticket being withdrawn, it will then call for a by-election, which is well clearly stipulated in I guess 103, 104, Article 104 of the Constitution 2010. Yeah. So, but for these ones, they are still within the range of just competing interests within these parties, and they may not call for such serious ramifications in law. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are the key stories that we have on the papers this morning, including, the utterances of Tutu and the backlash that she receives. And away from the utterances, the fact that there's a lot of nepotism that goes on in some of these offices. And we have seen left, right, and center stories being written as to that, and complaints arising in relations to that. Just how much of a danger is this? And is it wrong to have someone from your family occupying an office if they qualify? Because then it becomes very hard to, draw a line as to who should serve whom and what office, and employed or accorded this job by who.
Well, firstly, coincidentally, Toto is just my woman
representative
MP, yes, and so I'll be more careful on how to speak to that point, and especially given it's an issue that's already in the registrar of a court, that's the Labour and Employment Court. I'll also try to restrain myself from a lot of comments on that issue of nepotism, because it's something that has already been filed in a court of law, and it may be prejudice to speak to those issues so much. But then you just went ahead to ask a very fundamental, and looking at questions of nepotism are always adversely violations of our Constitution 2010, because in looking at how we are trying to bring this country to a level where we can apply meritocracy in our public service, and even on how we deliver. Questions of nepotism are just stumbling blocks towards a very equal community, towards a very progressive society. And I think she's not the only one anyway on this end, but there might have been overwhelming evidence for that case. But I also saw something so interesting with the case itself, that they went ahead to find out that she had employed of the 25 or something, 15 staffs, only 3 were of the female gender. And that was so annoying a bit, because look, that's the platform under which I thought she was seated to execute on. And I believe that's where she will have actually wrestled and demonstrated her figure and seal. Yeah, you see, by even having us to be surprised to see a list of 15 employees working under her, and almost 3/4 of these are of female gender. We will then take one as a positive criticism. But then, that one was so ugly of such a notice. So it was so ugly. I really didn't like where the part of it where I saw 15 staffs, 3 are women. Yeah.
And the rest are men.
Yeah, and the rest are men.
Well, Victor, I think on this very note, we close this session of the newspaper review. It's been a cool around 30 to 35 minutes looking at what the papers detail this morning. I know there's so much that we've not touched on, but we leave it for the people to at least read the papers. I think otherwise we do the entire copies and then they're left with nothing to read. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning, and as well for the great insights in relation to this. We're looking forward to host you some other time, Victor Kirui, as well as you speak to the youth and the youth matters at this very moment. We enjoy the best of Budesco Fredia before we get into that session of Valentine's. Asante sana.
Many thanks, and I look forward to having such another very, very intriguing discourse with you. And besides, as I just bid by, happy Valentine's to Hall and Santry they are watching. And I'm also made aware that there is a men's conference
Is it there? Today is prayer day. We are not
and
doing this
and I think I've been invited to one, and I'm joining them shortly. So just to ask my fellow men that they also don't need to forget their